p.m. We'll begin the meeting with a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. If everyone would please stand. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next item on our agenda is items of interest, recognition, and inquiry. Board of Education members, does anybody have anything to share this evening?
I just want to really quickly just offer my support to the recent anti-racism efforts that we're seeing all around the country, and just encourage our teachers and administrators to seek out diverse perspectives as they continuously seek curriculum materials and resources.
Thanks, Scott. Anybody else? Okay, Mrs. Fabiola.
I do wanted to take a minute to thank all of our committees that have been meeting over the last few weeks on our safe return to school plans. I will be sharing an update later on in the school board meeting as to the steps that have been taken. And I just appreciate everyone that has given up some of their summertime to help us with these tasks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our meeting is our organizational items. We do this every year. So a motion will be needed for each of these items. I'll begin with the first one, the appointment of the executive secretary. Per administration's recommendation, the Board of Education approves Superintendent Suzanne Cybula as executive secretary to the board and direct that she post proper notice of all meetings as given. Motion seated.
So moved.
Support.
Are there any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, appointment of legal counsel. Per the administration's recommendation, the Board of Education approves Broom Law Firm as legal counsel. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Support.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, designation of a newspaper for public notices. Per administration's recommendation, the Board of Education designates the Times Herald and the Voice for public notices. Motion's needed.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, any comments or questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next item, authorization for the investment of surplus funds. The administration is recommending that the board authorize the executive director for finance as its designated agent of the treasurer to invest surplus funds of the districts in accordance with Act 87 of the Public Acts of 1979, following generally accepted business practices and in the best interest of the district. A motion is needed.
So moved. Support.
Any comments or questions? Please signify by saying aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, I'm curious. The next item, waiver of tax collection interest. The administration is recommending that for the 2020-21 fiscal year, the board shall not require payment of interest earned on taxes collected on behalf of the school district by the various municipal units of the district, provided such taxes collected are remitted on the following schedule. Detroit Edison property taxes remitted upon receipt. All other property taxes remitted bi-weekly. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Support.
Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion's carried. Designation of depositories for school funds. The administration is recommending that the following institutions be designated as official depositories of the district and that the individuals holding the positions named be authorized as signatories on each account as listed. I'll go through these, but just make a note that Chemical Bank is, they're combining with TCF. So that there could be a name change on that institution. Merger, I believe, is supposed to be complete sometime this week. So those depositories are Charter One, Chase, Comerica, Fifth Third Bank, Chemical Bank / TCF, Flagstar Bank, Merrill Lynch, Michigan Liquid Asset Fund, PFM Inc., North Star Bank, Bank of America, Huntington Bank, Bank of New York, and UMB Bank. As far as checking accounts, the authorized signatures for the sinking fund, the building and site, the payroll account, the general fund account, and the debt retirement account are the treasurer, president, executive director, or superintendent. The cafeteria account and the student activity fund, the signers are the executive director or the superintendent. So a motion is needed for all of that.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, any comments or questions on that? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. And then the last item for our organizational items this evening is the adoption of a regular monthly meeting schedule. This schedule is in our board packet, so I'm guessing everybody had an opportunity to review that. So per the administration's recommendation, the Board of Education will adopt the regular meeting schedule as shown on page 5. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Support.
Any comments or questions on the schedule? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that takes care of the organizational items this evening. Our next item is the consent agenda, and a motion will be needed for the approval of minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting on June 22nd, the approval of the payment of bills, the financial statement, the schedule of investments, and the appointment of new teachers.
So moved.
So moved. Support.
Any comments or questions regarding the consent agenda this evening? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, so then we'll move into item number 5, recognition of persons wishing to address the board. Did we have anybody this evening? No. Okay, so then we will move on to our one discussion item, which would be our return to school update. I'm sure everybody's anxious to hear about those plans. Mrs. Fabula.
Thank you. I know that many of you have seen and heard, it's hard not to hear the reports of different school districts and how they're planning to safely return their students back to school for the 2021 school year. And you have probably heard every plan from being completely virtual to a hybrid approach to a combination of both. And I want to share with you the steps that our East China teams have taken till now and the ones we plan to take moving forward to get us to our safe reopening on September 8th. To date, we have had 4 surveys that have been completed, 2 family surveys. One was a technology survey on June 23rd. We did a family return to school safely survey on July 6th. There was a staff survey on return to school that was put out by our union and then shared those results of the survey with our team on July 14th. And currently we have a staff survey on our learning management system that is open still. So the data is still being collected on how our teachers feel comfortable with teaching online. So those 4 surveys, starting with June 23rd to current, have been completed except for the one that's still open. The district has held 7 virtual instruction committee meetings with a total of 52 teachers participating. Elementary team with 15 members has met 3 times. The secondary team with 18 members has met once. The special education team with 11 members met once as well. And our district virtual instruction committee with 8 members has met twice. Through the surveys and our virtual instruction committee meetings, it was decided that we were going to hold 6 training dates in August for our teachers on virtual and online instruction. These training sessions have been scheduled for August 4, 5, 6, 11, 12, and 13. So the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of each of those 2 weeks, we will be holding online virtual training for our teachers from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. They will be facilitated by East China teachers who are offered to conduct these trainings. We feel it's best to learn from the experts that we have amongst our ranks, and they are willing and able to hold those trainings for us. The trainings will also be videotaped for teachers who cannot attend the specific training dates and times, so they can view them at a later date. This morning, I held a meeting with our building principals, and we are organizing the dates for our individual school building return to school committees, the individual schools. Those will be held later this week and next week. Once we have these dates set, the district return to school committee meeting date with our district committee, that will be set. The return to school building committees will then meet weekly until the start of the school year. While we were able to make some decisions about our direction and plan for next school year, we are still waiting. We are still waiting on the legislative and MDE guidelines. The most important of these being the waiver of our current day and clock hour requirements. Right now, we are required to be in school 1,098 hours in 180 days with 75% attendance each day to receive our full state funding. Nothing has been changed on those legislations. Although there was last week, the House passed 4 bills late Wednesday evening that address the days and clock hours, which gives school districts options. But the bills still need to go to our Senate and then to the governor for approval. There's good news in these bills that they're addressing the clock hours and day requirements, but many of the items in these bills do not line up with the governor's return to learn roadmap. So you can anticipate that there's going to be some political discussions that are going to happen before we finally land on what is going to be required for us for the next school year. The Senate is scheduled to take up these bills on August 6th. In the meantime, we will continue to plan for our 2 options of face-to-face instruction and an online or virtual option. Some districts have announced plans, but they need the legislation and MDE to provide the waivers for them to work. Also, some districts start August 24th and need to get a plan announced and cannot wait for the legislatures to make their decisions. Our first day of school is 2 weeks later than the 24th on September 8th, which does give us a little bit more time to do our planning, and I think will be helpful in the long run. Once we announce a plan, we do not want to have to backtrack if changes are made, if we can at all help it. So I feel that even though many districts who announced plans early are now having to make adjustments or make some changes to the plans, which are confusing to families, I feel like taking our time while we wait for these critical pieces of legislation will work better for us in the long run. I know, like I said earlier, some districts are starting earlier and they really need to get out their information because they don't have the time. But with us having those additional 2 weeks, it does give us a little bit more time to see if more decisions can be made at the state level so that we can align our plan to that legislation. Moving forward, tomorrow, I will share with the school board, our principals and teachers, a 1-page document that explains the 2 learning options for East China School District for the 2021 school year. The following day, Wednesday, we will send a document via Skyward to our parents, along with an FAQ document that gives a little bit more detail. The week of August 3rd through 7th, the district will send a survey to our families asking them to select an online or in-person option for the first semester of 2020-2021 school year. We will also be asking families to let us know if they'll be using the East China School District transportation, if the student will need a bus. Once we have these numbers, the following weeks will be spent balancing our classes for maximum spacing, creating bus routes, and working with those return to school committees. At the special board meeting on August 10th, you will be presented with the East China School District COVID-19 Preparedness and Response Plan as required in the governor's return to school roadmap. That's one of the pieces that she put in place in her roadmap that we have to have completed and on our website by August 17th. So in the legislation, in the 4 bills that the House passed late last Wednesday, there's additional documents that might need to be prepared. One of them in particular interest to me is a continuity of learning plan an extension of a continuity of learning plan that would give us that waiver of day and clock hours. So there may be additional documents, but we'll see how that develops over the next few weeks. And with that, that brings us up to date on where we are with our planning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I just wanted to make a note that everybody heard that August 10th will be our special board meeting in order to approve our return to plan to coordinate with the governor's timeline. So depending on where we will be at, we will probably have another virtual meeting, but we can make that decision later if everybody can just put August 10th on their schedule.
So a number of people have expressed to me, and I've had the thought myself, or the concern myself about the hybrid plan. We are not planning for hybrid because of all the question marks with the state, and right now it's not allowed, right? That's everybody. Right. Is there a possibility that we would go back and consider a hybrid plan if the legislature makes that change in hours and minutes requirements?
I think that would be a topic of those return to school committees. When we talked about those initially, they weren't the plans that our teachers said that they wanted to develop. It was the in-person plan along with a remote plan. The hybrid, the logistics of the hybrid, and what I think, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're referring to is having a cohort of students come on Monday and Wednesday and another cohort come on Tuesday and Thursday, and maybe not having school on Friday for deep cleaning or something like that.
Right. I think that's the kind of the common idea of hybrid. I think what I'm hearing from people, and the thought, my own thought, is just the concern with the number of people in the classroom. So can you kind of explain to people what a classroom will look like based on, the wearing of face coverings and spacing and all those kinds of things?
Sure. In phase 4, which is what we're in right now, all students in grades 6 through 12 have to wear a face mask except for when they're eating lunch. Same for the staff members in the building. At the elementary level, K through 5, as long as they stay with their cohort, with the same students that they're with all day long, the students can remove their face masks, but the teachers will have to continue to wear a face mask all day. That's for phase 4. That's the requirements. The spacing, once we have our families choose whether or not they want to have online learning or face-to-face learning for next year, our plan then is to try then to balance the students who plan to attend face-to-face instruction and get as few students in each physical classroom as we can, with moving the furniture and spacing it out the best that we can.
So really the more students that go online 100%, the fewer that will be in classrooms and the more spacing we can have. So if nobody went online, it would be business as usual as far as the number of students in the classroom. They wouldn't have the spacing, they would just have the masks. And then the more kids that go online, the fewer the kids that will be in the classroom, and then they can start possibly spreading desks out a little bit. Is that kind of what we're thinking?
That's correct. Our survey of parents on July 6th who indicated at that time that they were interested in an online option was 25%. So we anticipate at least a 25% reduction in students. And that was early on in July. There might be more that select that option as we move forward.
So the parents have to choose one or the other?
For a semester.
Or the whole semester, okay.
For the semester, and then at semester time, they can reevaluate if they're happy with that learning option, they can continue it. If they want to switch to the other learning option, we would allow that. And
there's no trial period. It's just you're to decide before school.
Yes, and then that has to do with the logistics of having to switch. But as always in East Center School District, we would work with families that they needed, a change and needed some help with the situation.
Suzanne, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Oh, okay. You mentioned that grades 6 through 12 would be wearing face masks. Now, at St. Clair Middle School, we have the 5th grade there also, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So would the 5th grade then also be required at the north end to wear face masks?
No, because they have their own wing. They would not cross with any other grade level. So they would be considered, each one of those classes would be considered a cohort.
A cohort. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wasn't sure if they were kind of, had their own thing, or because they're at the middle school with the, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have in place what happens if a student tests positive? What happens to the rest of the students in the class or the teacher? Or
we are waiting on further guidance from the St. Clair County Health Department. We have been given a couple of letters that we would have to supply to our classes and to our buildings, like we do when someone has another virus. I want to think like pink eye or the flu, when we have to share that. We received those letters from the health department. We are still waiting on further guidance on the specifics how to handle individual cases.
So it would be possible when we get that information back, it's possible that we would have to keep an entire classroom at home for a couple weeks if there was a case in the class, or maybe even close an entire school, especially at the secondary level where there's a lot more mixing and interacting of people. If we got cases in the school, we may have to close for a couple weeks based on whatever the health department tells us. And so everybody would be online during that time and then come back when safe. Am I right?
You are correct. The ultimate authority is our St. Clair County Health Department. And so we will be following their guidelines and their direction through the safe reopening of our schools. But yes, they will be giving us that guidance.
And so teachers really have to kind of be prepared. They're teaching both at the same time. They're teaching kids in person and at home online at the same time. And also they need to be able to move from one to the other to deal with situations, correct?
Yeah, clarification on that, our K through 5 students will have a classroom teacher if they're face-to-face, or they'll have a virtual teacher if they are not face-to-face. That decision was made by our committee and administrators due to the fact that they don't have those independent learning skills that our secondary students would have. But they would have that same requirement. That's why this training is so critical for our teachers in that preparedness for when and if we do need to pivot or move to all remote online learning.
So if we move to online, because we have to close if we have cases, the students that signed up with the virtual will keep a virtual teacher, and then
Only in kindergarten through 5th grade. They will have virtual teachers and online teachers, but all of our teachers are being trained on the learning management system so that they will be using Google Classroom, Blackboard, or Seesaw for their, even if they're not a virtual teacher. So because we know it's critical that we are prepared if we have to pivot to an all online environment.
And then the high school, the same teacher will be teaching the students at home as well. Are they going to stream the classes, or what are they going to do?
That we're waiting on legislation to see what our guidelines are. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, attendance requirement is 75% physical in-seat attendance on a daily basis for us to receive our full state funding. Some of the proposals in the House bills were engagement. So if a student, if we can show that a student had engagement, we can count them as being present. So we need to wait to see exactly what we're given as far as whether it needs to be synchronous, which is together, or asynchronous, which is they could watch it at a later date.
Okay. And do we have the technology to be able to stream classes? That many classes?
Well, it wouldn't be all at the same time, but we're working with our technology department with what we have. And I know I've mentioned this in some board updates. Our struggle right now is the pipeline in the manufacturing of Chromebooks. They're not available. So even though we're able to make those purchases when we're ready, that we're not able to get those right now.
Okay.
Suzanne, do we know how far along the St. Clair County Health Department is in coming up with guidelines? And do we have representatives from the school districts working with them? Do you have that information?
Yeah, Michael Walling serves on the regional task force. They met this morning, and Dr. Mercantan is on that task force and updates them on a weekly basis. I received an email as a county superintendent, and it gave us those 2 letters that we will be using, and then just said that the further protocols are being developed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Have you heard, just last question, have you heard from a lot of people outside of the surveys? Have you been, or the principals been contacted by a lot of people with all these same questions that we're answering right now?
No, honestly, not really. There just hasn't, what they wanted, what our families were curious about is if we were going to offer an online and face-to-face option. Yeah. And so once we made that known, that has been the extent of the question so far. I know information that will trigger some more questions. That's why we have the FAQ document being developed along with the 1-page document. But I do think that as we move through these uncertain times, every day seems to be a little bit different than the day before. And families just be waiting to see what it looks like closer to September 8th before they make their decisions or ask for information.
Suzanne, one more question. What are the kids going to do at lunch?
Well, we have been not given firm guidelines on that. One of the ladies that's working the hardest through this pandemic is our Director of Food Service, Julie Humphrey. She meets very often with MDE about how they're going to be able to deliver food. It's going to look very different for us and for her. And so we don't have those completed guidelines yet. I do know it will look very different. Even for our breakfasts for our elementary, it's going to look very different.
Okay, thank you.
What are our biggest lunches? Like, I would assume our high school lunches are the biggest as far as number of students in them.
St. Clair Middle School is pretty big too, but yes, we were talking today with the principals about how we can create more lunches, more lunch times for students. That's where that day class hour becomes so important, because right now we are down to the minute of that 1,098. And so as soon as those legislatures make some decisions for us, and if they give us a little bit of freedom or a leeway and waiver, in order to make these decisions, we'll be able to fine tune our plans.
Because a lot of times those cafeteria tables are all designed to be, they're all circles, right? With everybody facing each other, close proximity. So spacing there is probably the hardest.
Yeah, we have circles and then we have the traditional long tables. So we'll have to find the ability to space those students.
We're not considering opening campus.
No, we have, no, we can't do that with our current food service program.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne, and your team, everybody that's, I know, working on these are some difficult decisions, and we appreciate all your time and effort and patience as we try to get guidance from the uppers. Okay, the next item on our agenda are board action agenda items. We have 2 more action items this evening. Those are the first action item pertains to the integrated math high school courses. Per the administration's recommendation, the Board of Education will approve the integrated math course for Riverview East High School as presented at the June 22nd Board of Education meeting. A motion is needed for that.
So moved.
Support.
Are there any comments or questions?
Was that gonna, when we approve, that starts this upcoming school year?
Correct.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, the next item is our elementary technology course. The Board of Education approves the elementary technology course as presented at the June 22nd Board of Education meeting. And motion is needed.
So moved. Support.
Okay, any comments or questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.